In 2023, a quiet genetics lab in Mexico City made a discovery that shouldn't have been possible. Buried deep within indigenous DNA samples from Oaxaca and Yucatan, scientists found fragments of genetic code that didn't match any known human population. Not Native American, not Asian, not even African. Something older, something forgotten. These genetic traces predate the first known humans in the Americas by tens of thousands of years, suggesting that someone or something reached this land long before history began keeping records. It was supposed to be impossible, and yet the evidence was alive, not in fossils but in people walking the streets of modern Mexico. What these genes reveal could force science to rewrite the story of human migration and unlock a forbidden chapter of our past. I'm on a road to get 2,000 subscribers. Please subscribe. It started with ancient bones discovered in Mexico's Tehuacan Valley, one of humanity's oldest agricultural sites. When scientists extracted DNA from these remains, what they found didn't fit any known lineage. Instead of matching other early American genomes, these samples contained fragments that seemed misplaced. They weren't Siberian, as expected from the Bering Land Bridge migration. They weren't purely indigenous American either. They belonged to an unidentified genetic branch, a ghost population that left no tools, no skeletons, no trace except within living Mexican DNA. Dr. Eske Willerslev, the Danish geneticist who once mapped the first ancient American genomes, ran the analysis 5 times. Each result returned the same anomaly: sequences that diverged from known human lineages nearly 45,000 years ago, far earlier than the first accepted migration into the Americas. To most scientists, it was just data noise, but to a few, it was the genetic echo of a lost people, a forgotten civilization whose blood still runs quietly through Mexico's descendants. The deeper scientists looked, the stranger the story became. Mitochondrial DNA from ancient skeletons found in coastal Guerrero and Baja California revealed haplogroups never before seen in the Americas, yet somehow linked to populations thousands of miles across the Pacific. When the data was compared to genetic samples from Polynesia and Melanesia, something extraordinary appeared: a shared maternal lineage that predated known oceanic exploration by nearly 10,000 years. How could islanders from the Pacific, separated by entire oceans, leave their signature in ancient Mexican blood? Archaeologists began to revisit old findings once dismissed as myth. Cave paintings in Baja showing canoe-like vessels, obsidian tools shaped in ways eerily similar to those of Micronesia. Perhaps long before Polynesian navigators charted the seas, there were others, unknown mariners who crossed the Pacific, carrying stories, languages, and DNA to the shores of the New World. And Mexico, it seems, was their first landing point. The mystery didn't end with Pacific links. It went deeper, far deeper, into humanity's forgotten roots. In the limestone caves of Mexico and the highlands of Chiapas, researchers found fragments of DNA that seemed to come from another world. When compared to genomes from early humans in Asia and Australia, the sequences showed something startling. They diverged from the rest of humanity more than 50,000 years ago, before modern Homo sapiens had fully replaced archaic humans like the Denisovans. Some skulls found in early Mexican burial sites even shared traits with the mysterious remains of Lagoa Santa in Brazil: elongated faces, rounded cranial vaults, features strikingly similar to ancient Australian Aboriginals. The conclusion was almost unthinkable. 2 entirely different human migrations may have reached the Americas, one from the north through Siberia, and another, far older, from across the Pacific. If that's true, then Mexican DNA isn't just a chapter of human history. It's a window into an alternate version of evolution, one that science has only begun to glimpse. Long before the Maya or the Aztecs, a shadow empire rose along Mexico's Gulf Coast, the Olmecs. They built colossal stone heads, mastered mathematics, and carved symbols that would later evolve into writing. But one question still haunted archaeologists for centuries: who were they really? For decades, fringe theories claimed the Olmecs had foreign origins, African, Pacific, even Eurasian. Scholars dismissed it as pseudoscience, until genetics entered the story. In 2021, a team studying skeletal remains near San Lorenzo, Tenochtitlan, the heart of the Olmec world, found mitochondrial DNA unlike any other in Mesoamerica. Haplogroup B2 variants appeared, but with mutations unseen in other indigenous populations. They were ancient, isolated, and possibly linked to archaic lineages from the Pacific Rim. It was as if the Olmecs weren't just descendants of one people, but the fusion of several, a civilization born from converging worlds. The faces carved in basalt now seemed symbolic, not of kings, but of memory, a monument to humanity's forgotten mixture, preserved in stone and blood. By the mid-2000s, archaeologists believed they'd closed every chapter of America's genetic story, but deep within burial caves of northern Mexico, a different truth waited. A joint study by UNAM and the Max Planck Institute analyzed bone fragments predating the Spanish conquest by nearly 4,000 years. The results sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Traces of West Eurasian genetic markers appeared, genes typical of ancient populations from the Near East and the Caucasus. They weren't contamination, and they weren't colonial. They were ancient, far older than Columbus, older even than the pyramids of Teotihuacan. The discovery suggested something unthinkable. Small groups of travelers, perhaps through forgotten northern routes across Ice Age seas, had reached the Americas long before recorded history. They didn't conquer or colonize. They merged, their lineages dissolving quietly into the ancestors of today's Mexicans. Like whispers from across the Atlantic, their DNA survived, not in stone or scripture, but in blood. Modern Mexico holds more than 60 indigenous populations, each with their own language, culture, and, as it turns out, genetic fingerprint. To geneticists, the country isn't just a nation, it's a living archive. The Mix and Zapotec peoples of Oaxaca carry DNA segments found nowhere else on Earth, sequences that appear to have split from the rest of humanity nearly 30,000 years ago. The Nahua, descendants of the Aztecs, show mitochondrial markers tied to Paleolithic Asians who crossed the Arctic tundra before the last ice age. And yet, others like the Seri and the Tarahumara carry deep-rooted lineages that connect them to extinct Paleo-American groups once thought to have vanished 10,000 years ago. In one place, across one land, exists more genetic diversity than most continents combined. Mexico became the meeting ground where ancient migrations collided, mixed, and endured. A genetic time capsule, preserving not just ancestry, but the story of all who came before. Science can measure genes, but not always the memories they carry. Across Mesoamerica, ancient legends speak of Aztlan, a radiant homeland across the sea, said to be the birthplace of the Aztecs. I'm on a road to get 2,000 subscribers. Please subscribe. Others tell of 7 ancestral caves, Chikamoztoc, where the first peoples emerged before spreading across the land. For centuries, these were treated as myths, but genetics now hints that they may be distorted memories of real migrations, waves of arrivals and returns, stretching across oceans and ages. Pacific oral histories describe voyagers who sailed toward the setting sun and never came back. In Mexico, similar stories speak of pale visitors who came from beyond the horizon and vanished into the jungle. Different voices, same rhythm, like echoes of a single forgotten event. Perhaps these myths aren't fantasy at all. Perhaps they are ancestral memories of encounters so ancient only DNA still remembers them. Still.